nerd.
What's up, party people? So we just got out of It Chapter 2. I have a lot of things to say about it, but I'll wait because it literally just came out like last night, so I won't spoil it. I'll talk about it in a couple weeks, that way you can listen to the podcast the second it comes out. I don't want to wait so you don't hear those spoilers or nothing. So today is Friday, and the first day of school was Tuesday, so yeah, just finished our first week of senior year. Oh, Kirsten and Helen are here too. Woot woot. Yeah. How did you guys think first week of senior year went?
Fucking shitty.
Yeah.
I mean, my schedule's okay now, but having to deal with my fucking guidance counselor this entire week was a lot.
Woohoo!
I wrote down the first day.
Oh yeah.
How was yours?
I'll give you a play-by-play. On Tuesday, I had an okay day, and I was gonna actually podcast after the first day, like Tuesday, all of Tuesday. I was like, wow, can't wait to be done with school, can't wait to get in my car and podcast on my way home from school. But I got immediately very tired, and I the second I sat down in my car, I was like, I'm not opening my mouth for the next 24 hours or 12 hours until I go to school again. But yeah, so I didn't podcast then, but yeah, a lot of things happened Tuesday. Nothing eventful like during school, but after school I had to go to Staples because I normally wait to get supplies for the school year because like I know what classes I'm going to take, but you never know what type of materials they're going to require, and I hate to buy like an extra notebook or like come a notebook up short and then like you have to go back out twice. So I normally wait, but this year I just repurposed a whole bunch of supplies from junior year because like I gave up during junior year and I had like 5 notebooks because I took a whole bunch of classes and each notebook had like 3 or 4 pages used in each of them. Yeah. So I was like, well, that was a waste. So I tore out the 3 or 4 pages and then I repurposed those. But I needed a math notebook and I didn't know I had math this trimester until, obviously the first day of school, so I didn't have a math notebook. So I needed to get a math notebook Tuesday afternoon. So I go home first directly after school so I can...
Please.
Where am I going? Am I going south?
Yeah, you're going straight. Go straight.
Yeah. Okay. So I go home immediately after school and I'm like, boy, I'm beat. That was a tough day of the first day of senior year and I'm a little tired. But I just sit down on my couch and I'm like, I'll chill. I'll watch a YouTube video or two. And then maybe I'll go out. And then half an hour later, I go out to Staples in Brantford. And the key thing about me is that I know where things are in the context of like 100-yard radius and like things directly next to it. So I knew Staples was in Brantford along Route 1, but I didn't know if it was like near what exit it was near or anything like that. So I was like, well, I can't take the highway because if I overshoot the exit, then I'll have to backtrack. And I really decided that taking Route 1 all the way from Madison to Brantford was the smartest move for me to make. Heaven forbid I have to turn around and only drive 15 minutes on the highway. I'd rather do like 30 plus minutes on Route 1. Anyways, it doesn't even fucking matter because I get out of my house, I get in my car, I make it like 10 minutes in the car, and this is 10 minutes of me going like 40 miles an hour on the back roads, my normal speed, but like my eyes are closing every other second. I'm so fucking tired. And like my head's dipping a little bit, and I'm getting to the point where I'm rationalizing my thoughts, being like, okay, if I close my eyes for like 3 seconds, get like my power nap in, then I'll be good. And I did resort to slapping myself one time. I was so tired. Anyways, I get to Guilford, and I get a little bit past Lyman Orchards to where Helen, that building that your mom works in, actually. Yeah, that there's like a hair salon in this, like, it's a little
complex.
Yeah. It's a little
gas station
thing. Yeah, near the gas station that's right off of the furthest south exit in Guilford. So I get to around that area, and I have to pull over. I pull over into a parking lot, and I took a 10 to 15 minute nap in my car in this parking lot because I was so tired, and I'm pretty sure I would have slept there that night if I didn't wake up because my car got really, really hot. Because I parked it like half in the shade, but the driver's side was in the sun, so after like 10 minutes, like, I woke up and my thighs were really, really hot. And, like, I woke up thinking like, oh my god, I'm in an oven right now. But I was just in my fucking car. Yeah, so after that, I continue on my way to the Brantford Staples. Anything eventful happened at the Brantford Staples? No. Yeah, just, what I do when I go shopping is, instead of looking for the one item that I want very closely and spending maybe like 5 minutes in the store, I dart around the entire store, or like the entire department that would like contain the item I need. I just look at each item for like a second and decide, no, that's not what I need, no, that's not what I need. So I end up spending like 15 plus minutes in this Staples looking for one notebook. The only thing I needed was a math notebook, and I like to use the graph paper notebooks for math class because it's just easier when you're drawing graphs and stuff. So I'm going in there. I have one mission: to find a graph paper notebook that isn't ugly as all fuck. So I go in there, and immediately there's this, like, little, like, center aisle type of display. It's, like, a cardboard setup, so that, like, because it's, like, school supplies season, and, it's, like, notebooks, and I'm, like, sick. This is what I, like, will kind of need, and, so I go over to it. There's a dude there, so I'm, like, oh, maybe I won't look at these notebooks right now, because it's really like a 1.5 person wide thing. So if I go over to look at the notebooks with him, I'll be like too close to a stranger, and like I'm still waking up from like my 10 to 15 minute like nap haze, and I'm like, I'm not fit to be within this personal space of this person. So I bypass the notebook kiosk, thinking, okay, if I strike out in the notebook aisle, I'll come back to the little kiosk. So I go to the notebook aisle, and it's like half an aisle, one side, shelves of notebooks, and it's organized by the subject, like whether it's a one subject notebook or a 3 or a 5 subject notebook, and it's also organized by the rule, whether it's college rule or wide rule. And at first I just didn't see graph paper at all. I like quickly glanced. I noticed how it was like kind of vaguely organized like that, but it wasn't fully, because obviously people had been in there and they picked up a notebook. They're like, this isn't what I want, and they just put it back. They didn't like put it back directly. So it was like there was a vague sense of organization, but it wasn't all correct. So I was like, I don't see anything. After like my 5-second glance at this notebook section, I've determined that there is 0 graph paper notebooks in this entire, like, I don't know, 100, 300 plus notebook thing. That's my exit, that's my exit, that's my exit, that's my exit, that's my exit.
Oh my god, oh my god.
Slow
So, oh my god.
There we go.
You really just gonna cross that lane.
I looked in the mirror. So I determined that there's no notebooks there, and there's like, keep in mind, there's like 300 plus notebooks, but I've decided, I've looked at 10, so I've looked at them all, and I walk away. I walk over to the notebook kiosk. The dude has finished up, and he bought like 8 notebooks, I want to say. He had like a good old-fashioned stack of them, so good on you, bud. I doubt you're gonna use them all, though. So I go over to the little thing, and I'm like, okay, notebook. This is like my holy grail. This is really where I think I'm gonna knock it out. I've spent maybe 5 minutes in the Staples by now. I should be at the end of my Staples run, but it had just begun. So I like that I said that nothing happened at the Staples. No, a lot happened at the Staples. I just remembered. So I go over to this notebook kiosk, and I look at, so it's, it has two sides to it. The front side is one subject notebooks, and the back side is multi-subject notebooks. It's both 3 and 5 subject notebooks, but there were no graph paper notebooks on that one either. And it had fewer notebooks than the aisle did. So I was like, I actually looked at like most of them on the kiosk. I probably looked at like 20 notebooks in like total on that thing out of like, I don't know, 40. So yeah, there definitely wasn't any on there, and I was like, oh dang. I trek on back to the notebook aisle, and so the notebook kiosk is maybe like 2 or 3 aisles down from the notebook aisle, and I'm not really fully like intimately familiar with the Brantford Staples, so I would have to check each aisle as I went from the kiosk to the aisle to the kiosk to the aisle. I kept having to walk up and down each aisle thinking, this one's the notebook aisle, oh no, this one's the notebook aisle. And yeah, so I go back to the notebook aisle. This is like the second time in the notebook aisle, and I'm like, okay, I think it has to be here. And there were notebooks there. There were, I found the graph paper notebooks that I was looking for, but for some reason, my dummy brain went into idiot mode, and it saw that it was like, the paper measurements were, I think it was 8.5 by 11. No, it definitely was 8.5 by 11. You know, normal paper dimensions. But I looked at it and I was like, no, that's not normal paper dimensions. And since I'd repurposed the notebooks from last year, I was like, it needs to match my last year's notebook dimensions, or else I'm gonna lose it, because I hate having like one short notebook or like one wide notebook. So I find a bunch of graph paper notebooks, but they're all 8 by 11, and I'm like, this is not what I want.
Why did we slow down at that green light?
Well, because you always slow down in an intersection. Okay. So I determined that these are not the graph paper notebooks that I want, and I go and I'm like, so there's got to be another section of graph paper notebooks. So I go up and down the aisles. I go through the whole office supplies section until I start getting into like electronics or like office organization stuff, like bins and stuff. And I don't find them. So I go back to the kiosk, and I'm like, maybe I have to look at the other 20 out of 40 notebooks that I didn't look at. So I look at the rest of them, and and there's still 0 graph paper on that kiosk in general. Also, so I saw a girl there from Guilford, and she's in our grade, and it was Alyssa. I saw Alyssa Rice there. Yeah. And I played soccer with her for 2 years when the Madison and Guilford soccer teams were combined, because there wasn't enough girls our age in both towns willing to play on the like dummy loser, we're just kind of playing for fun teams. So we played together. Her dad was the coach. Yeah, we were like friends, we were acquaintances. We follow each other on Instagram. I have her on Snapchat, even though I don't snap her. So we're acquainted, and like, she noticed me, I'd say, when I was in the notebook aisle the second time. So as I was turning to go into the notebook aisle a second time, she waved at me, and I waved back. And so she knew I was there, and I was staying within like a 3 to 4 aisle radius, because that's the office supplies radius. And she was kind of sticking around there too, because she was with a friend, and they were like shopping for school supplies together. So I just left the kiosk for a second time, and so Alyssa has seen me bounce back and forth, and I'm like, okay, so there's 0 graph paper notebooks on this kiosk. So I go back to the notebook aisle, and I'm back in the notebook aisle for a third time, and I'm looking at these graph paper notebooks, and I'm like, and I noticed that the regular notebooks, like the ones that were just one subject college ruled, they came in different dimensions. So I was like, okay, so the graph paper ones must come in different dimensions. Like, there's no possible way that they don't come in different dimensions, because I'm looking for, regular paper dimensions. Me not realizing that 8.5 by 11 is what I was looking for. I'm so mad that I did that. But, yeah. So I look. I find a whole bunch of the notebooks that I need, but I don't pick any of them up. And I'm like, okay, maybe I just need to look one more time. And I do. I look one more time around the store. And, okay, I'm gonna pause because I'm letting Kirsten out. Bye, Kirsten.
Bye.
You're a clown.
You're a clown.
You're a motherfucking clown!
So I leave the notebook aisle. I bypass the kiosk because I know there's nothing at the kiosk that I want. And I go a little bit further out of the radius that I've been in. And I find one more thing of notebooks. And by this point, I've been in this store 15 minutes at least. I was in this store for so long. So, maybe about 10 or 12. And I find this one more section. So you know how at like the end of the aisles, they'll kind of like set up shelves sometimes? Yeah, so it was like that. And there was, it was the end of like one of those half-height aisles, and it had like 2 shelves of notebooks on them. And it was, so there was, one shelf had regular notebooks, like the regular lines, college ruled, and then the other shelf had 2 boxes. One was graph paper notepads, and it was like, I don't want those because I don't want to like have to flip through a notepad. I wanted to be able to open and close a book, so I like didn't even look at that. And the other box was more 8.5 inch by 11 inch graph paper notebooks. And I'm like, okay, I was so close. I found more graph paper, but again, they don't have what I want. And I was so mad. So at this point, I've established 3 notebook locations, and I go back to the notebook kiosk, and I'm like, at this point, I can like tell you how the notebooks are arranged by like color and stuff, because I've gone back so many times and I've looked through them all, keep hoping one will mysteriously turn into graph paper, but no. So that's the last time I go to the kiosk. I finally got it into my little baby brain that there's nothing at the kiosk for me. I go back to the notebook aisle, and again, I can like tell you what these notebooks like look like and how they're arranged and stuff like that, because I've like looked through them so many times, and surprise, I don't find any other notebooks. So I go back to the little end of the aisle display, and I'm like, fine, I'll bite this bullet. I'll just take one of these notebooks, and I take out the graph paper notebook, 8.5 by 11, and yeah, so that took me about 15 minutes, and then I walked around for another like 2 or 3 minutes looking at like the other notebooks and stuff, because I think I needed, I don't know, like another notebook, or like another, yeah, I needed another notebook, because I had 2 notebooks, plus the math graph paper one that I was gonna buy. But I had a 4th class that was like, you're gonna need notes. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe I'll get another regular notebook. But I didn't want a regular notebook for this one, because it was like, it's gonna be a collected notebook, and I didn't want to like both lug around a full-size notebook and hand in a full-size notebook. I don't know. So I like look at the half-size notebooks for a good 2 minutes, determine I don't want anything that they're offering, and I finally go to check out. And the checkout was working, was moving like kind of slowly. They had two desks open, or cash registers open, but one lady and I think her son were at one of the registers. They're at one of the registers when I get in line. I'm like 3 people deep in the line. So they're at one of the registers, and then there's just one person at the other register. The single person finishes at the register, so they help the next person in line, and then that person finishes, and they help the next person in line, and then that person finishes, and they help me. And this lady and her son were really just at that Staples checkout thing for like really fucking ever, and I have no idea what they were doing at the Staples cash register. But yeah, apparently it required like 3+ minutes of being at the register. Yeah, so that was my Staples adventure. Other things have happened this week, but they're little snippets, and I think I'll save them to pad other podcasts. So I think that's it for tonight. Helen, do you have anything to add? Okay. Yeah, so night, guys. Have a good weekend.